My name is Steve Rowe, and today I would like to discuss some fastening options that you have available for the biscuit joiner. Oftentimes we as woodworkers need to provide for the ability to assemble a project or a workpiece on site at the job site, or the ability to disassemble, store, and then reassemble an item at a later date. I found this is often the case for use in manufacturing store fixtures, and I'd like to show you some of the options that I have used over the years and have been quite successful and pleased with. I'd like to show you some various fasteners that I've used. This is manufactured by Knapp. It is called a fastener. You mill two biscuit joints, grooves in your two work pieces. These hammer into place. There's some cutting edges along the arc, and they just snap together. This is a fairly weak joint and really is only used for decorative type covers or valances, that sort of thing. I don't use this very much, but when I do have the need for that, it comes in very handy. Next up is the Knapp Sunny fastener. This is a plastic fastener like the Fast. It hammers in with the same cutting edges on the arc of the biscuits, and it interlocks together. And you'll note these tabs provide some limits on the axial motion. Once you can hear that thing snap together once you make the joint. One of the disadvantages to this is that if you do break it apart, you stand a reasonable probability of breaking off these tabs, and you could render the connector unusable for future use. This has a slightly greater holding capacity than the Fast, but it is a nice connector, and I have used this on numerous occasions for low to medium joint loads. Next up is the Knapp Champ fastener. This is also plastic. It is interlocking leaves. It is Knockdown, and you notice that there's no gap and no wiggle room either way on once you get this connected. This does not have cutting edges. It is glued in the biscuit halves. There is an installation tool for installing this, and what it does, it enables you to set the appropriate height in your biscuit groove when you glue this in place. I have had this in service for approximately 17 years on several commercial tables. They've had sewing machines sitting on them and vibrating, and I've never had one of these joints fail. This I put in place, and one side was glued into hardwood and the other side into a veneered plywood. It works very well. The one downside to it is that it is the only one of these four fasteners I'm going to show you that's actually glued in place. And next up is my favorite Knockdown fastener. This is a Knapp Silver. It is made from die-cast metal. It is hammered into place. These cutting edges along the arc hold it into place. I mean, this is a very strong fastener, and you will note some indentation marks here, which you can hammer in one side, and it will restrain movement of the interjoining pieces. Otherwise, when you reconnected this, it would just the joint fastener has a tendency to slide all the way through. This is my favorite fastener. It has twice the load capabilities of the Champ, which has 4 times the load capacity of the Sunny, which has twice the capacity of the Fast Fastener. So these are the 4 fasteners that I use in my shop for knockdowns. Before we get started and showing some videos of how to use these fasteners, one of the things to consider is that these fasteners, with the exception of the Champ fastener that's glued in place and is set with a jig, are all very depth sensitive. If you make your biscuit depth too deep, then you will get a joint that you just cannot assemble. It will not connect. If you make it too shallow, you won't have a tight joint. One of the things that I've discovered is that if you use a 13 millimeter depth on your biscuit, that will get you pretty close to using these fasteners and getting a good joint. I found that the most limiting is the Fast, because they have these interconnecting fingers that have to spring into place and lock. This is the most depth sensitive of the various fasteners. The Sunny and the silver fasteners are fairly forgiving. You can make them a little tight and it'll still function, and we'll see that effects of that shortly. Now I've cut a biscuit half, and to check where I'm at on this, this is definitely one of those periods. If you're used to working in imperial measurements, you need to use the imperial or use the metric measurements and forego imperial at this point. Now I found here that the depth of my joint for my test cut is 13.21 millimeters. That's a little too deep. I'm going to go ahead and set this thing up and see how this works. I think we're going to find that it's too deep, and I know for sure I will have to make an adjustment for the fast connector. As a check to make sure your measurement was pretty close to the center of the groove, I always check and see how close to 67 millimeters I am, and I check the entrance and exit points from the cutter blade, and I'm at 66.15 millimeter. That's close enough. I think I'm pretty close on this measurement. Still a little deep, but we'll see how it works out. Okay, on this connection I'm going to use 2 of the silver connectors and basically make a knockdown joint. Consider this piece here the inside of a table leg, and this piece here is the face up, is the inside of a modesty panel. I've drawn a line, the required distance where I want the outside edge to be, and I've marked on here where my connections will be. So let me get my hearing protection on, safety glasses, and we'll rock on. First thing I'm going to do is cut the joints for the modesty panel. On this setup, notice that I use the same marks on this piece for cutting both the grooves in the modesty panel and on the leg side. So we'll pull this thing out and then start using some of these silver connectors, I'm sorry. On one of these joints, it's very important and it's very easy to make a mistake, is to get these turned the wrong direction. So basically I will want one piece like this on one side and one piece like this on the other. And I like to lay them out and visualize to minimize the chance of a mistake. So let's go ahead and do this. I've already punched out the connection here to limit it, make sure it, on this particular one, I want it to go in the downward position. And I just line it up in the groove. You'll notice that it's just hammering into place. And then I'll use this pin punch. Came with it to get it in approximately the proper position. Once that's done, I will make sure that I orient the other one in the same position. Note on this, I really only need a restriction device on one of the two pieces in this entire connection. If you go too far like I just did, turn it around, tap it from the other side, and now I've got the modesty panel fixed. Now we'll go to the side panel. I like to hold the modesty panel up, make sure I'm getting these positioned in the correct positions. So knock this one in place. And then do the other one, orient it the same direction. If you mess these up, it's not a problem, you just knock them back out. Now I've got my fasteners put in for both the inside and outside, and let's see how this thing fits together. Make sure you get the offset, which is approximately 3/8 of an inch. And one of the things I like to do is take a piece of wood and then just use a hammer to drive this thing home. And now I have a very strong connection. And that is the Knapp silver fastener, my favorite Knapp fastener and my favorite knockdown fastener for the biscuit joiner. So let's see what the others look like. Now in this one, we're going to use the Sunny fastener. Make a single connection. First thing I'm going to do is just mark on here where I want this connection to be. I've got the faces positioned such that when they open up, it'll be positioned like this. First thing I'll do is, I got this set on 20. Now I've got my 2 slots cut. I actually think I've got my plate joiner set a little too deep because of how difficult it was to hammer the silver fasteners together. One thing you'll notice if you ever use these is that the plastic fasteners drive in a whole lot easier than the metal ones, because the plastic just deforms easier. And then I just eyeball it in place, get it positioned level, and like we did before, I visualize how I'm going to put this connector in, and so where I don't have the inside going out and vice versa. Okay, now I got my 2 connections ready to go together, and I can slide this in from either way. I think I did that. And on these, if you drive them with drive these particular fasteners home with a hammer, it will have a tendency to drive all the way through. And now I've got, fairly tight joint. I can wiggle it because you can see the flex of the plastic. But once it's together, it's a medium strength joint. So let's move on, and then next step we'll look at the fast fastener. This time we're going to use the fast fastener. What I want you to visualize is this bottom piece being a valance that goes over, say, a light or under a cabinet, or perhaps a valance for draperies in a living room. And this is going to attach and snap into this place here. I've positioned this to where these 2 will be flush, but what I've noticed from my other joints is that they were real tight, and I know for a fact that that is going to be a problem. The joints are just slightly too deep, and these pieces will not go together if I don't do something. So I'm going to pull this part out, and I'm going to adjust my depth stop slightly. This is where it's important to know the thread pitch on your particular joiner if you use this. This is an M4 thread which has a 0.7 millimeter thread pitch. So if I turn it clockwise, it won't go as deep. And now I'm going to use, that's 1/6 of a turn, and now I think I'm just going to go a little deeper to make that slot not quite so deep. And I've got this set up as before with my mark, and I'm going to cut some joints. The woods I'm using here this is poplar and this is ash. Let's see how I did. I have a feeling this is going to still be too deep, so I'll show you how to take a utility knife and trim it. probably noticed that it was very difficult to drive this fastener into this piece of ash, so let's see how it goes. I have a feeling I may need to trim this thing. So, and surprise, surprise, even a blind hog finds an acorn every now and then, and it fit first time. It does wiggle a bit, but once you get it connected on the other end, you'll never notice it. So anyway, just to demonstrate that you can break this apart and snap it together. So this is not what I would call a very strong structural joint, but it can be removed for service. Anyway, those are the Knapp fasteners. They are available from Stay Fast. So anyway, I hope this helped you and was informative. Thank you.